All right, guys, we are live with Miss Ashley Yoder. What's happening, Ashley?
Hi, how are you?
Hey, doing good. Thanks for being on the show tonight. And I miss you. It's good to
I
see
miss
you.
you too. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And sorry, I'm glad we made it work. So even if
Yeah,
it had been 9 at night, I would make it. It's just been busy days.
you are awesome. I know you got a lot of interviews, especially after the last fight and the last win, which was a dominating performance. Actually, saw the replay this morning because I wanted to get it fresh in my head for tonight's interview. But man, you were just taking her down at will. It was awesome.
Shout out Team Quest.
That's
Yeah,
right.
I got my wrestling from the gym. I didn't have wrestling when I started fighting, so it's something I developed over the years. But thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah, you look good in it. And I think was it Granger had like a big Taekwondo background, and you were just like, "Yep, we're gonna do that for a little bit, and then I'm gonna take you down."
Yeah, take you into the spider monkey world,
That's
basically.
right. That's right. So, my podcast is primarily mountain bikers. I've gotten heavily into mountain biking since the whole pandemic started. And what I find is that mountain biking has a ton of mental aspects to it. You have to be mentally strong and really focused in order to hit a lot of these trails that we're hitting. And I feel like there's a lot of correlation to fighting, or at least in MMA. And I know you being my own personal coach and fitness instructor, that I always see a lot of parallel when I'm going down the mountain, and I'm always thinking about what you would do or what you would say, or if I was wimping out, how
Probably
you
just
push me.
talking crazy. Like, is that all you got? No, you're
Exactly.
definitely one of the hardest workers that I have the pleasure to train. So it's nice to have people that want to work in the room because you have that same mentality of being an athlete, right? And it's not easy to come into the gym, especially when you're not getting paid for it, to give it 100% just to go home and not really get any get any gains from it. You get gains, of course, physically, and I think it's a very good stress reliever, but it's a different animal when you have to come into a gym and it's not your job. So
Yeah. No, and you always make the environment challenging. You switch it up. It's highly energetic, and you make it really fun. So, I mean, it's like the mountain biking world. You're working out, but you don't feel like you really are because you're having fun. But I mean, there are those moments when you're working out.
yeah, I definitely try to make it as much fun because it is a lot of time on the bag. So it's a tough class for anyone, but yeah, I try to put a little bit of effort into it.
Yeah, it shows. It's really enjoyable. For anybody out there who's watching live, or if you're listening to this via the podcast, if you get a chance and if you're in the Murrieta Temecula area, pop on in to see Ashley Spider Monkey Yoda at the gym at Dan Henderson's Fitness Center. You will not be disappointed in the workout. Um, Ashley, let's, I definitely want to cover more of that, but let's go back to the beginning because a lot of the folks coming from the mountain bike world may not be savvy to who you are. They probably know UFC, and I'm sure they know MMA, all that, but who is Ashley Yoder, and how did this whole thing get started? Because I guess I could plant the seed that when I look back and see pictures of you from when it started, I see like pictures of this bubbly, cheerful, pretty cheerleader, and then you look into some highlights today, you see this badass fighter. so, so if you wouldn't mind taking us back to where it all started.
Yeah, of course. Growing up, it was just me and my brother, and definitely we were just like I had the spider monkey inside me. I just didn't know what it was until I got older. But I mean, I would climb on random parents' heads, like things that children should not ever do. And
Right.
my mom never really like shut it down. She just be like, "You're happy, you're just really happy." So I had a lot of energy growing up. But me and my brother, we got into um he was a wrestler, so he would come home and he'd be like, "Look at this move! It's a full Nelson," and like my face would be in the carpet, like. So I'd always have to like kind of hold my own with my brother growing up, ever since I can remember.
Hmm.
But that's part of who I am, and I think what's gotten me as far as I have is being able to have that like brotherly tough love. So
Was
Um,
he is he your younger brother or older brother?
no, he's older, 3 years older. Yeah.
Okay.
So we're very much, I mean, we spent every day of every hour together. So our
Hmm.
parents were split up. So we spent half the time, most of the time with my mom, but we were
Okay.
in a car a lot of the time going back and forth from my dad's to my mom's. So,
And you grew up in Indiana? Like, were you literally on a farm? Is that no?
hmm
Yeah,
yeah.
you were.
Yeah,
Wow.
so I was born in Indianapolis. My parents got divorced, of course. I moved when my parents got divorced when I was 3. My grandfather was in a car accident or a semi accident actually,
Oh my.
and someone had to take care of him. So we moved southern Indiana to 188 acres on a farm. It was called Brentama Farms. It was my
Hmm.
mom and her sister's name put together. My grandfather had it for years and years and years. So we had 11 horses. We had all these four-wheeler trails. We were just super country. So,
Wow.
um, yeah, it was a lot of fun. At the time, growing up, you really don't understand how awesome it is. And then, now I'm so grateful for being able to grow up in that kind of environment instead of being on video games all the time or, just not, being, it's a different life now for these kids. So we're
Yeah.
very country, no TVs really, like just horseback riding, paintballs, and all those things. So,
How cool. You were literally go out the door, mom locks the front door, play all day, and then come in
yeah,
at dinner time type of thing.
yeah, yes, exactly.
Wow. Wow. A lot of kids nowadays, it's so scary to go outside if you're in the city, for XYZ reasons. So yeah, how cool.
Yeah, yeah, it's a different, yeah. I'm very grateful. At the time I was like, all my friends live in town and I was so sad because like they'd be like, we can't invite you over. You live 15 minutes away. Like I lived out in the middle of nowhere. So all the city kids would always hang out and I only got to go like on the weekends when it was like a trip in town. So
Mm.
but growing up now I'm very grateful to be able to have those experiences and be an outdoorsy type child. So
Yeah. And for those of you who haven't followed or would like to follow Ashley Yoder on Instagram, you can see all the different outdoor activities that she does and as well as pick up a ton of humor off of her Instagram. But that's a whole subject. And I really want to get into that too later because that is a talent of its own.
still an Instagram post is super toned. No, so growing up, having an older brother and trying to hang out with the boys because we had four-wheelers, we would so I'd always try to be like hanging out with the boys, doing whatever they were doing. And of course I was usually the test dummy for whatever ramp they made or just anything. I've been tased. It was quite the experience. So needless to say, I got my skin was tough when I was younger. So, my 18th birthday was a traditional birthday. We are gonna have a birthday party. It was in the fall, so we
Mm.
kind of have like a haunted house type theme, and we were gonna dress up in characters and then have like just a party at my house of 180 acres. So,
Wow.
um, yeah, my brother ended up leaving the house to take a ride on a motorcycle, and he never came home. I was actually
Mm.
really, and I mean, in itself, just to be sure, it was a very interesting situation. I was actually me and my best friend were the last to speak to my brother, and it was
Mm.
almost like the future was already new. Like it was really weird. So normally we see each other on the country road, we'd like wave at each other.
Mhm.
This time was different. Like he made a point to turn around
Mm.
and come talk to me and was like, I just want to tell you happy birthday and mom's in a bad
Mm.
mood. And it was just a very weird, but I'm so grateful for that conversation because that was the
Mhm.
last conversation he had.
Mm.
But even my best friend that she's been my best friend since third grade. She was like, that was weird. Like, that's weird. Like, you would just wave, I'll see you in a little bit, but he like
Yeah.
made an effort and had conversation. So
Wow.
not to get too sad subject, he was in a car accident and it was a very traumatic devastation and our whole family. And
Mhm.
it was just for me as an 18-year-old, it was my birthday and coming from a small area and not knowing what I know now, being just kind of ignorant would be the right word, right? I didn't know And I was just very like, you won't understand. No one understands what I'm going through. No one's ever been through something like this. And I kind of just
Mm.
shut off from the world.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it was a very rough couple years. So in the beginning, really, really rough for me. I didn't want to talk about it. I was not the same Ashley. I was not the bubbly Ashley anymore. I was not the social butterfly. I was just kind of closed off for
Mm.
a while. And the only way I thought I could get out of that is, you know, I ended up, at first, to rewind a little bit, I wasn't going to go to college. I was just really traumatized and I just was very sad. So, I didn't want to go to college at first, and it was my senior year. So I was already accepted into IU and I needed to go. But I was just very on edge. But then I kind of
Mm.
had this realization that I didn't want my parents to feel as failures. They
Okay.
lost one child. I didn't want them to feel as though they lost, they didn't do great as parents. So
Mhm.
that's
Man,
actually what motivated me to go to college.
that's a lot of pressure, Ashley. So you have your brother who's like literally you guys are tight, hanging out all the time. So, almost like your best friend there. And then you got your parents, obviously the event. And then to go back into that, you were saying you weren't your bubbly social self. You were a cheerleader, social butterfly, prior to this, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I was very much I for writing passes for people to get out of class early. Like, I loved everybody. I got so many accolades for being like the popular kid, the funny kid, like the class clown. So that was just like me. I was more into my social life as with my friends before my brother passed than I was actually even school. So the fact that I
Mm.
even got into a decent university is a blessing.
Yeah, I use no joke, and I could definitely see that bubbly side of Ashley Yoder now. but
Yeah, it's definitely come back.
but going back to that time, so this is after the accident. You're feeling the pressure to go to IU. You felt the responsibility. Obviously, you felt the loss of your brother, but you felt the responsibility to your parents to go to college. So you ended up going to college. You went to IU, and what did you study?
I went just for criminal justice. I wanted to go into law school. I ended up coming out with two majors: African American diaspora studies, so a history type major, and then criminal justice. And I worked for my senior year. I worked for the prosecutor, so it was a real quick lesson learned that I didn't want to do that.
Mm. Yeah.
But I still wanted to be able to prove I had these. At the time it was get a degree. It doesn't matter what it's in. So I just wanted to get to that finish line and not feel like I put all this effort and time and money into school and I didn't come out with anything. So that was
Mm.
important to me.
Yeah, little did you know that that was going to carry on into the new life, right? Setting those goals, achieving them, working towards something. And then, if I read it right, you do have that degree, but do you have a second degree?
I have two degrees. So African American diaspora studies, history, and
Okay,
then criminal justice
criminal
is my second.
justice.
Yeah.
Wow. And tell
So
me, what is the African American diaspis? I can't even say that word. Diaspis?
diaspora studies,
Diasporas. Oh
DIA.
my gosh.
So basically, it's the transition from slavery from Africa to America and the history behind it. So it was
Wow.
actually a lot of the classes I had to take to get a criminal major. I had to take a lot of Black history classes. And so it was actually just an extra semester to get another major. So we did it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. 2 degrees. 2 degrees from IU. That's huge. So here you are. You're in IU, 2 degrees in there, and then where does is the birth of Ashley Spider Monkey Yoder come in?
It was the year, so kind of going back onto the sad side. My freshman year, leaving my brother or having my brother gone, I was still
Mhm.
struggling. I didn't go to a therapist, which I should have. So if you ever lose someone, make sure you seek help. I didn't see a therapist, and then in the middle of my freshman year, I found out my 14-year-old cousin randomly, completely healthy, found out that she was in a stage 4 of cancer, and she was
What?
4. Yeah, so It was a lot. So I started
Yeah.
drinking, doing
Okay.
the college thing with too much freedom for where I was mentally, I think.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I almost failed out my freshman year. So between my freshman and sophomore year, one of my friends was like, I get you don't want to go talk, you don't really want to talk to anyone about what's going on in your life, but you need to get your anger out. So come into this gym. It
Hmm.
looks like it's like a garage, maybe even smaller than anyone's garage. And you can beat the crap out of the bags and you know how to explain. You can just get the anger out that way. AKA that was
Mm.
my cardio bags. So
Oh wow. Who is this friend? Are you allowed to say? I mean, that's
oh
a
yeah,
really
no,
important person.
his name's Jonathan is the guy that brought me and my friend Alyssa into the gym. So
Shout out to
um
Jonathan. Nicely done.
yeah, yeah, and it's a crazy experience for him too because he and a couple years ago was in a car accident and doesn't remember a lot of things that have happened.
Mm.
So it's kind of sad. I'm not even sure if he remembers bringing me in at that. He had a really bad car accident, but I mean, he's healthy now and he's living, but he had some trauma where he has memory loss. So,
Man, that
crazy.
the brain is a crazy powerful thing, you know.
Hmm.
Um, so okay, so you and Alyssa are in there, and
Yes.
you're hitting the bags. For is this like the first time you've ever done? You're like cheerleader, social girl, and now all of a sudden you're just are you just sinking your
Not
teeth
even
into this
hitting a
thing?
bag. We weren't hitting a bag that was like a standing bag. It was like a ground and pound. It was a bag that was on the floor. We learned jujitsu without a gi, so it was just like guard position, super basic jiu-jitsu with no gi. Just kind of it was an MMA gym. So, I mean, we didn't know what MMA was. I thought, watching it on TV, it was WWE. I thought it was fake. I didn't know it was like there were real fights in the octagon
Hmm.
um, at the time. So it's super new. This was 2008.
Oh wow. So it was
2008.
just so the Fertitta brothers had just purchased it around that time or
Yeah,
somewhere
yeah,
around
I
there.
think, yeah. So it was the old. I mean, this was before. Now, there almost every state is taken over with the boxing state sanction. So that's where you have your weight cuts, and they have their rules and regulations. The commissions come in and have regulations. They didn't have that when I started. So
Oh
I was
wow.
starting as almost like a reservation type situation as an amateur. So elbows were allowed.
Dang.
Yeah, it was crazy. So. Um,
Dang.
yeah, so I started training with him, and it kind of kept me focused. I would drive, it was over 45 minutes, almost an hour, actually an hour and probably 15 minutes every weekend instead
Just to
of
get
going on
there.
just to train. I'd stay
Wow.
at home, train, and then it kept me really focused and not partying. And I got my grades up. I ended up staying in school, graduating, of course, with 2 degrees. And then I was introduced to, hey, do you want to go do this competition? You'll be the first girl for this competition. Needless to say, that was my first MMA fight. They didn't say
Oh my
fight,
gosh.
but it was a
Oh.
fight.
They code it as competition. Oh
Yes, which it
man.
is, I guess. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty gnarly. And as amateurs, I see amateurs now, they keep them so protected that, like, just to know, I was doing professional level exposure, if you will, no headgear, really small gloves, elbows were allowed, knees were allowed, all these things were allowed that, you see this now and you'd be like, that's not allowed. So um, it was kind of crazy. Yeah. So.
When you were working out in this gym and you were learning the MMA, did you know after the first couple times that this is like kind of like I guess therapy in a way, but did that made you feel better or was there something about it? Because that's such a different state from where you were as the cheerleader social butterfly, right?
Yeah, it was definitely different. It was the first time Mark, you're gonna laugh at me. It was the first time I sweat. Like, I remember walking out of the first practice and my shirt was like dripping wet, and I'm like, ew. Like, I never sweat like that. In cheerleading, you're half dressed, and dance, you're half dressed. Like swimming, you're in the water. I never was really a part of a sport that, like, it was like a lot of plyometrics and, you know, all these things. And I was very sweaty all the time. I was like, what is going on? No, so I actually, not until my very first fight, and I was kind of shoved into it, did I know that it was going to be my saving grace for all my built up anger. Because, you know, you get out like punching stuff. Yeah. Like I got a little bit, I wanted to learn. Like it was something to kind of get my mind focused on other than being sad. I was able to use that as my gateway. So in a way, yes, it helped me. But when I stepped in the cage for the first time and had my first fight, they always tell you, you'll know if you're meant for it and if you're a flight or a fighter. So I was a fighter. It was a very bloody fight. And afterwards, I mean, I was bleeding from everywhere and I was like, let's do it again. Like that was so much fun.
Gosh. Wow.
So I knew from there that like I wanted to keep learning and keep trying. And at the time I had 4 fights before I knew even what was going on. Like I didn't even know really what I was doing. So I was getting there kind of brawling. It was funny, but
wow. Wow. And that was back in the days when there was like no rules around the amateurs. It was just go for it.
Yeah. There was at the time there wasn't commission.
And then was there payment for these things? A trophy?
No.
Like it was.
No, I have 2 trophies. So as an amateur, you can't get paid. That's what makes you a professional. But yeah, I got a couple of trophies I still keep. We have videos of my first fight. My mom has them. Very funny. Very funny.
Wow.
I had my first fight was I was 20. The girl I fought was 40 and she was like ripped. She had short hair and I had very short hair, but I used like clips, like those little hair barrettes to keep my hair up. And I guess one of the things is that you're not supposed to have stuff in your hair because it's like weapons, right? And at the end of my match, there was like, it looked like mouse traps all over the cage. Like they're like, where did all these come from? Like, and they're like, you cannot have those. I'm like, I didn't even know I was fighting in a cage, sir. Like, so
I thought this was a contest. They didn't tell me.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh my gosh, Ashley, that's crazy.
It was like fighting for your life, but it gave me this rush, this release of endorphins that were built up in a way that I can't even explain how they got released, but it was like my saving grace. It was not pretty, but it made me want to learn more. It made me want to do it more. And I was just that much more in love with learning. So I learned.
You were hooked on it. At what point, take us through the point where you realized this was going to be like an all out brawl. Were you, when you pulled up, when you walked out, or at what point? Because
after when I step in the cage in my first fight, I turn around, they shut the door, and I looked at my coaches and I said, I don't think I want to do this. I changed my mind. And they're too late, turn around. So on the video, you can see me tell them, like, you can't hear me talk, but you can see me say something. That's what I'm saying. And they're like, turn around. I was like, oh gosh. And I will tell you, I've never been in a street fight until my first MMA fight, which was basically a street fight that people got to watch, right?
Right.
But she hit me first, and then it was like, that was when I was like, holy crap, that hurt. I have to hit her back. So and then that was kind of the thing for a little while. I had to get hit first for me to be actually engaged in a fight with someone. It was not, I never sparred before any of my fights. So I didn't know what sparring was. I didn't know what takedowns were. I would just bum rush people. So it was very unintelligent and unsafe, but it got me. If I knew what I knew now, I probably would have never got into it. You know what I mean? So.
Wow.
Yeah, it was.
Wow, that is crazy. We got one of the guests here in the audience is asking this question real quick, Ashley. It says, hey, what's up, guys? Do you ever get tunnel vision during a fight? Ooh, that's a good question. Mentally, do you get tunnel vision?
Tunnel vision as in like super focused, or as in like you just kind of lose sight and you're only focused on like nothing?
Yeah.
Because I can see tunnel vision is, for me, is, I think, you're focused on the fight. Everything else around you is not relevant at the time, right? You're focused on what you need to do. So yeah, it's definitely a sense of that. We like to refer to it as just being present.
I
being
like that.
present, seeing everything that comes. But I also, very aware of what my coaches are saying to me so I can react when they see stuff that I don't see. So,
Mm.
yeah, that's,
Almost like a meditative state, but you're just letting the coaches in, but all the lights, all the noise, the crowd, all that stuff
yeah,
just kind of goes away.
yeah, yeah.
Very, very interesting. So that is what planted the seed for Ashley Spider Monkey. And then where does the name Spider Monkey come from?
Well, fast forward, I moved to California after I graduated. A month after I graduated college, I just packed, no one believed me. I was like, I want to learn how to fight for real. So I literally packed, I had a Trailblazer at the time, my car full. My cousin lived in LA, but I didn't know anybody in Temecula except for one of the guys I went to college with. He wrestled at IU and he got into the UFC and was like, there's a bunch of girls out here. Come to Team Quest.
Hmm.
Got all my stuff in the car and just drove all the way to the West Coast without knowing anything. Lived in a fighter house and
Oh my
started training
God.
at Team Quest.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it
Shout out
was.
Team Quest.
Yeah, that's my home for life. So, yeah, I got the name Spider Monkey after training at Team Quest. I would be like Dan's warm up rounds. So, like anytime he had to do jujitsu and warm up, I could go as fast as I wanted, and he would be, he didn't have to worry about the guys with extra weight and muscle to like kind of move him around. So I was
Hmm.
like his warm up round. So he'd always say, "You're like a spider monkey." You're just like he was the first person to really call me the spider monkey.
Wow.
It stuck after my first fight though. I kind of jumped on the girl's head. So yeah, it started with Dan, and then my first pro fight, I like jumped on the girl's head. So then the world kind of started recognizing that my jiu-jitsu style is very scramble like, very monkey like. I have long arms. I'm all over the
Mhm.
place. So that's kind of where the name comes from.
Gotcha. That's a very appropriate name. I mean, just looking at this last fight, there was so much acrobatic jujitsu going on that even announcers were like, "Hey, it's a flip into an acrobatic. I think it's an armbar. Wait, there's a double triangle going on."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It was really good. So okay, so you're moving to California now, and how old are you at the time? You just packed up and took off.
I just graduated college, so I was 22, 23, almost 23 probably.
Wow. Was there any stigmas when you were in college that you had to overcome, or stereotypes as a fighter, as a female fighter, that you had to overcome? You're studying, you're in your classes, and I'm sure you'd come into class kind of banged up sometimes, but was there anything that you had to overcome there socially?
No, no one really knew I was a fighter except for my friends. Not that we like, it wasn't a big thing, so we didn't talk about it. It was kind of like my hobby on the weekend. So I
Wow.
had two jobs. I was training and fighting when I could. Like I said, I only had 4 fights before I moved to California. But yeah, it was. Didn't really have to overcome any obstacles in the social scene with getting I mean, I would have black eyes all the time and people were like, oh, where'd you get that from? But
Yeah.
it was never I never really talked about it that much. So
Wow. Kind of like a
yeah.
secret fighter in the
I
closet.
mean,
So,
my friends would come to my fights 20 people deep, but like it wasn't something that I'm like, oh, hi, I'm Ashley. I'm a fight. And to this day, if you come to my classes, you'll never hear me say that, hi, I fight in the UFC. My name's Ashley. I'm just, it's just, it doesn't define who I am. It's just what I do. So.
yeah, no, that's really cool. That is very cool. So you move out to California, you meet Hendo, one of the legends, you get your name Spider Monkey, and this is, you want to do this for a living at this point.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I didn't know how I could do it because I wasn't good, but I was wanting to try whatever outlets I could. So coming to California, I had no actual aspirations to be a professional or be in the
Hmm.
UFC. I just wanted to learn how to fight and get a job and just kind of get away from home and see what I really wanted to do. So at the time I was still, do I go to law school? Those things were still in my head. I didn't bank off being a professional fighter at the time when I first moved here.
Wow, that's very interesting. And what brought you to the professional side? At what point did that become a reality?
So I had 4 more amateur fights when I was at Team Quest. The opportunity came up to be on the Ultimate Fighter. They were doing the 115 season for the first time. And so you had to have at least one pro fight. So I turned pro for that, just to try out for
Gotcha.
the show. I turned pro, and I won my first pro fight, and then I didn't make the show. So they kept some other girls. It was like a little bit different for the first 115 crowd. They kind of took girls that were already established because they were building a division at that point. It was a brand new division. They needed girls that had experience, and I had one pro fight. So it was very devastating to me. It was a huge setback, and I was kind of like, well, what now? Like, that opportunity is probably never going to come again. It's not often that one, girls get the opportunity to be on Tough, and two, a second chance to be on the Ultimate Fighter. So I just went back, and I was already pro, so might as well make some money,
Hmm.
and started taking some fights, actively competing in jiu-jitsu with a gi. So I started doing more competitions. And then the opportunity for the second Ultimate Fighter of 115s popped up. And it's like, here we go again. This might, it was very, it wasn't the same as the first season. The first season was all 115 girls. This
Hmm.
season, season 23, was going to be half and half. So now your slot to make the show just got cut in half,
Okay.
because it was half guys, half girls.
Oh man.
Yeah, so you have to go through an interview process. Once you get through the interview process, they take you fight, and then if you win your fight, then you get to make the team. So I got through the interview process. I fought, I got on the show, and from that point on, it was kind of just, this is what I'm going to do. I'm a pro now. I'm on the show, and it was just kind of full force focus on being a fighter at that point.
Wow. And you had Team Quest as your home, your family. Obviously, Henderson there is probably a mentor. So you had a great team behind you. And
Yes.
for the folks who don't know or have seen that show, Tufts, I mean, what was it like being on that reality show? Was it strange, cool, indifferent?
It was very strange, very awesome. It was a life changing experience. I made friends that are some of my best friends to this day. But you don't have any access to the outside world for 7 weeks. No phones, no TV, no books, nothing for 7 weeks. All you have is eat, sleep with your opponents and your teammates, and get everything recorded from the time you wake up to the time you go to sleep. So
Wow.
it was a very stressful, nerve-wracking kind of situation, because now you're competing. You don't know who you're fighting.
Mhm.
You have to make weight on like a day's notice, 2 days notice.
Oh
So
man,
you have to watch what you're eating.
you got to be ready at all times. Yeah.
Yeah. So no TV or anything. So we pretty much just pranked each other the whole show. So it was a lot of fun. I made a lot of really good friends, and you get a lot of experience of kind of understanding yourself, without the team aspect, without your coaching. I relied so many years on, I don't know what's going on, but if you tell me to jump for an armbar, I'm going to jump for an armbar. And now I'm more fighter IQ intelligent on the side of, I'm going to look and see. I don't have to run like a robot with my coaches in my ear, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
you
You,
just
you
get a
can
little bit more intelligent.
Yeah, you can process. They must see something that, and now I have to look for that opportunity that they're seeing and match it up versus
Yeah.
just doing something. Yeah.
And then put your faith into people that you don't know. So, like,
Mm,
you're going into a fight and they're telling you what to do. And hopefully you're on the same page on what they're talking about, because it's not always, coaches don't always have the same verbiage, or you might not, know a technique that they're talking about. So it was all very fast, even though it was a long time we were there. But
yeah.
yeah.
Was that hard to put faith in people you don't know? I mean, you talked about after the accident from your brother that a lot of things kind of shut down from that. Was obviously fighting has been good therapy, and you've been great at it. You are great at it, and has it opened you up more from that time frame, or was that tough to do to open up?
Tough. I see what you did there. No,
Yeah.
yeah, no, I definitely, I mean, to this day, I still have really bad trust issues. We're still working on that thing. But yeah, you have to put faith in these people, because you have nothing else I mean, there's nothing else. It's either you have to believe that they want the best for you, or you're just, there's just no other way. That was kind of like, burn the ships. There's no way out. We have to be able to take their ships home, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of you had to put your faith in them. So, and we did. And it was a great experience. It was really hard for me mentally to feel like I was worthy to be on the show because I was coming from someone that had no martial arts experience, that started MMA as MMA. I didn't start just jiu-jitsu and try MMA. I started MMA. So my MMA, my ground was MMA. Everything I did was a mixture of things. It wasn't anything solely one discipline of a martial art. So I was going against people that were in the Olympics for wrestling, had kickboxing professional careers, and then came over to martial arts, had Muay Thai professional careers. And then, so it was very hard for me to kind of like say, oh, I'm supposed to be here. I just felt like I wasn't meant to be there because I didn't have the experience of all these people. So.
Wow. Is that now with what you know now, is that just a mental thing that you had at the time, or is that somewhat ring true? Because I mean, you having no experience, you're kind of like this beautiful blank canvas that you can create an MMA fighter out of, right? You're not stuck in bad habits or anything like that.
And that's a great point because that's what gave me fuel. I was like, my body hasn't had the miles wore out on it. My brain, I'm an open canvas. There's no bad habits yet because I don't know anything about the sport really. I had bad habits because I was kind of a brawler, but it was the only thing that really kind of made me like, all right, I knew I deserved to be here because I want to fight to be here. It wasn't like, oh, your personality got you a bed in the house. You had to fight and win that fight to be able to be in the house. So it helped with that. And it gave me confidence to kind of compete and give me that fuel to be like, in the back of my head, do I deserve to be here? No. But in the front of my head, we're just going to fake it till we make it. So that's kind of where it was,
Yeah. I mean, that's such a good lesson in life. I feel like so many people come up against that in what they're doing is sometimes you just got to go with it, take action and fake it until you find your way through it. And sometimes that just takes failing at something or learning that you need to get better at something to finally feel like you belong.
Yes.
So, such a cool thing. So, okay, so you're on Tough, and now you are. At what point did you get into the UFC? I mean, obviously that's part of the UFC, but.
Well, yeah. So technically, they tell you once you're on Tough, even though you're fighting in the same octagon and you're fighting under the UFC banner, those fights aren't you. You're not a UFC contracted fighter. You're fighting to win a contract, but you're not technically. It's kind of like the Dana White Contender Series, how they try to get contracts, but ours was like a 7-week process instead of one night.
Wow.
So back in the day when Ultimate Fighter was a thing, a really big thing, and it was really, popular on TV, they kept all the fighters. If you were on the show, you were going to be in the UFC. Our season, they kept the only 2 winners, the 2 finalists. So they said, go out, win a fight, and we will bring you back into the UFC. I said, oh, okay. So that's another like door in my face. And I'm like, so, like, no one wanted to like just give me one fight. They want to lock you into contracts because now you're on Fox and people, for 12 weeks the show airs. So people know your face all over the world and you're now a commodity to them, your monetary gain for them so they know they want to lock you into contracts, long-term things. And it took 6 months from the show to get my fight. And I ended up fighting for Invicta. All-female organization. Awesome. I love Shannon Knapp. She was really very open to being like, hey, anytime UFC calls, they can have you anytime. And I will make sure that every time you win, you're getting this pay increase. So
that's so cool.
Oh, it was amazing. Such an amazing experience. And I got to compete on that show with my best friend that I met on the show. Her name is JJ Aldridge. We actually fought together on Invicta. So as soon as we got off the show, we fought. And then I got signed and fought. We actually both got signed to the UFC and fought within a week. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was very
Wow.
a lot. So we got to fight our first fight together in the UFC, and then the Ultimate Fighter, and then on Invicta together. So, yeah, we've been through a lot together, and it was quite the emotional roller coaster. But we got through. It was a lot of fun.
Wow, you guys will forever be linked through that
Yeah.
process. That's really cool, Ashley.
Yeah.
I know you have a hard stop here coming up in 8 minutes, so I wanted to offer up anybody in the audience who has questions and they want to ask Ashley anything. We'd be happy to go ahead and field that. And if you are listening to this on the podcast, I just wanted to get into the side of where you are today. So I've known you now for I think 3 years, Ashley, something like that,
Yes.
and I've seen you progress as a friend and as a fan. Your fighting style looks a little bit different. You still have the really strong jujitsu, MMA, but what has changed on your side? Something has changed. Something looks different.
I really got in touch with getting a mental coach. It was something, starting back from when I started fighting, that confidence that I struggle with. I never had parents that were ever like, you're not good enough. But in my own head, because I didn't feel like I had the experience of a lot of people in MMA, especially the UFC, I've really struggled with having confidence when I compete. So
Mm,
I hired a mental coach, and I've been working every day very, very hard for the last 3 months with him. He's
okay.
worked with GSP, Donald
Oh wow.
Cerrone, Rich Franklin. And he doesn't treat me any worse or any better. He's just a fully committed uh, coach that just wanted to help, and it's been really great. And I think it's just the break of the surface as a new Ashley. I feel that my next fight's going to even be so much better than this fight, just because coming off 2 losses, you kind of play overprotective, over caring on your performance. But I really feel like he's given me the tools to kind of find myself and build that confidence in myself. So
That is awesome. That is wonderful. With mountain biking, a lot of times I find that it's a very mental sport as well. Sometimes if you think today might be the day that I crash, you end up crashing. If you look where you're not wanting to go, you end up going there. Are there some things that you've learned, like mental tips or mindset tips that might be able to help out somebody in the audience?
yeah, I mean, definitely the biggest thing with mental awareness is, I mean, if, like you said, you don't want to put any negative self talk in your head, it's always going to happen, but you just kind of have to let it flow, let it go, and focus on something that's positive. So, one
Mm,
of the things that it's really clicking with me is the repetition. Spaced repetition is so important. Everything from just repeating, like my morning routines change, so I have the exact same day. I know what my day is going to be like in the morning. I plan my day the night before, and that's something I never did. And those little things kind of ease your mind to kind of focus on other things than being worried about, am I going to be late, am I going to do this,
mm,
and that those little things get you on board with being more self-disciplined, right? And then you just build off that. So definitely just getting down an AM routine, a PM routine, scheduling your block. I mean, my hours are blocked out throughout the whole week. And I'm just going back and forth. One of the biggest things he'll tell you is you sync to your training, and confidence you don't get confidence by doing anything. You
mm,
literally just have confidence. You have to confidence is just a mental thought. Like it's not like, oh, I did all these things, now I've gained mental confidence. No, half the people that you think have mental confidence are basically faking it till they make it. So it's a
wow.
kind of a weird concept to even think, right? But it's true. And is if you keep telling yourself the right things and doing all the right things, that I'm doing all the things to be great, I'm putting the work in, I'm doing all these things, then that's going to be the thought. So um to be on the more vague side, but it's a lot, and I'm still working, but we scratched the surface, and I'm really excited about it. So
You could definitely see it. And then especially in the walkout, when you walked out, it was like, oh, this is not gonna be good for the other person. And and I love what the coach is saying. I mean, really, it sounds like, the confidence is already within us. We just need to tap into it, believe
yeah.
it, and set ourselves up to I guess, achieve it by, taking out all the things that are variables and making it an organized day. You're less likely to think about those things and have more time to, really work on your discipline, your confidence.
Yes. And
Wow.
drilling the skill sets that you work in. And it goes across the board. It's not just athletes, it's in your work environment. And the skills come from drills. And then you have your skill set, right? So same idea with anybody in a work environment that wants to be a network person, that wants to do anything in life. All these things translate as the person you want to be. Who is the person you want to be? What's your principles in life? So he's amazing. His name's Brian Kane. He has a program for athletes. He has a program for teams. And it's just a very, when I originally bought it, it was a 90-day or a 30-day program. And then I started picking up and working with him. But anybody can go do the program. It's $200. It's a book that you can have for your life. I've been through it now. I'm going on ending my third time through it. So.
Wow. What's his name again, Ashley?
Brian Kane.
Okay. And is he local here, or is that somebody
I think he's through he lives in Arizona. So we get on Zoom calls all the time and talk and reflect and work on things that way, and sends me mental imagery, audios, visuals, all these tools and practices that I can do on myself. He's teaching me these things. So.
Wow, that's huge. I think that could be huge, like you said, for a broad population. And then specifically in the mountain biking world, that could really help out a lot of the athletes here on that side. I know you got to go here in a minute or two. Since this is a mountain bike show, I do have to ask you about the mountain bike. So what was the last mountain bike you rode? Because I know living out here in Murrieta, you've been on. Go ahead.
No, I rode on one. Actually, I have no idea. It was a really nice one, but it was we were at Mark McGrath's house, the dirt bike rider, and he was like, "Oh, this one's just like a $10,000 bike. That's more expensive than my car." And I had like a button that the seat moved up and down. It was like the Mercedes of bikes, and I was hooked at that point. So yeah, I got to get into looking and buying one. But mountain biking is a whole nother animal, and you guys are beasts for doing that. So
I got to get you out on the trail with me, get you out on some footage. Are you allowed to do something like mountain biking on your contracts? I know it could be a little dangerous at times.
Yeah,
but
I can do whatever I want, but I'm a little bit more aware of not getting hurt. So
yeah. Ashley, before we let you go, I really appreciate your time. It's great to see you, my friend. I love the information you had on mindset, and thank you for sharing your journey, being vulnerable about sharing about your brother and opening back up and teaching us all where Ashley Spidermonkey came from. This is awesome. Ashley, tell the folks out there where they can find you on social media.
But mostly on Instagram, because I like to laugh. So Spidermonkey Yoda, Instagram, my Twitter, and my Facebook pro page are Ashley Yoder MMA. And yeah, I just like to get on there, make people laugh. That's my side hobby. So maybe I could be a comic one day.
Yeah. What does the future hold for Ashley? What are your goals now?
Man, we're just climbing these rankings. I'm trying to get into, the contendership of being full potential of what I'm bringing. So, just focus on each day, each fight, just trying to get better and better and right to the top.
I love it. Ashley Spidermonkey, everybody. Tell everybody I said hi in the gym there, Ashley.
I will. Have a good night.
Thanks for jumping on.
All right. Bye.
Bye.